How you doing today? Happy day. It's June 1st, first of a new month. Good grief. First off, it blows me away that we are 5 months through 2020. And many of us have posted this is a year that we cannot wait for it to be over. So we're making progress, aren't we? It's moving on. And happy 1st of June. Happy new month to everybody. Dwayne, Monday time to roll. Absolutely, my friend. We are rocking here on the new month. So that's one of the crazy things about how everything runs together. If you're like we are, there's a bunch of payments that are due on the first of the month and all that, and you with the Memorial Day weekend being early this year and all that, we were just kind of, wait a minute, it's today, it's the first of the month, right? So today is June 1. Brian, always great to see you, my friend. I appreciate it so much. Thank you for being one of the most loyal viewers and participants that we have. Thank you for all the sharing that you've done from there in Wisconsin, and I really, truly appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, doesn't it make you wonder, Dwayne? Holy cow. And it has been a roller coaster, but the coaster seems to be doing this little. I think we're ready for we're ready for it to spring back up. It's man, if you, and we're going to talk more about it here in just a little bit. We had the Ken and Glenn show with a guy named Scott last night, and we were talking about race, which is a very, very challenging subject to talk about. We're going to talk about that, some of the problems that we are having, some of the situations there. Brian, thank you again. I appreciate it so much. Charles is with us in Silicon Valley today. Beautiful and warming up. Let's see. Right now in Vegas, it's 94 degrees, and so it's a hot one. Plenty of opportunity still remains this year. We still have a chance to make some good things happen. And Brian, we are working on it. I hope to have something more very, very shortly. We're going to get a publication date on the new book coming, and we are working on courses right now. That is how I'm spending a lot of. As a matter of fact, I got to tell you, a friend of ours who's an electrician was just here. We are working on even enhancing this studio. That's part of what we were talking about. So we're really excited about new courses and new things that we're going to be able to do with the studio that's going in. As you can see, we've already done some work on it. That's what's here, but we're excited about that. Some good things happening. Pam, always great to see you every day. Thank you as always. Gosh, it's we miss Fishers, and a lot going on there as well. And Mike on the other end, great to see you in San Diego today. Thank you very much for being here. I'm going to talk about the good news about bad news. That's today's topic. But before we get into that, I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that coming up on Thursday of this week, one of my favorite guys on the planet is going to be a special guest. His name is Jay Baer, Baer. If you're not familiar with Jay, you need to check him out. Check out his work between now and Thursday. He has a fantastic book out with Daniel Lemon entitled Talk Triggers. And it's on how to get people to talk about you in the way that you desire. Somebody posted a couple days ago when I mentioned that Jay was going to be here. You'll never look at the cookies at DoubleTree hotels the same way again, or alpacas the same way again. Jay is just so insightful and so terrific, and he's going to be joining us on Thursday live from Bloomington. Hey, here's my guru of live streaming right here, Ken Walls. Ken is the Ken of the Ken and Glenn show, the guy named Scott. We're getting there. Thanks to Ken has a course. Speaking of courses, we were talking about courses. Ken has the course on live streaming, how to live stream and how to make it happen. So Ken is my live stream guru. Jerry, what a time to do deep thinking and make plans for the changing world we are headed to at a fast pace. Jerry, truer words have never spoken, my friend. You're always insightful, and that is a great nugget right there. My goodness, if what is happening now doesn't cause us to reflect, I don't know what it will take. Right? I mean, if going through from a pandemic that continues, I mean, we can't say, oh well, that's done. I mean, the virus kind of gets to decide that, not us. But going from the pandemic into what we have seen in the streets this last few days, good grief! If that doesn't really make us do some contemplating and some deep thinking, I don't know what will. I don't know what does. We have to be doing that, and that's part of what we're talking about today. Hey, you're the best, Ken. Absolutely, yeah. Jay will be a fabulous guest. Will be a fabulous guest, and really looking forward to it. So we hear so much bad news, and today is going to be the good news about bad news. And what made me think of this was I was going to originally talk about something else, but what made me think about it was last night's show. If you haven't seen the Ken and Glenn show with a guy named Scott from last night, it's available on our page, the Ken and Glenn show, and a guy named Scott page. Ken has it on his page. I've got it on mine. And we spent 90 minutes last night with two actors that are a part of Glenn Morshower's acting program, acting class that he teaches. And one was a regular on the show Queen of the South. I was trying to think of Queen of the South, and she was fantastic. Nikki, and we also had DJ, and gosh, they were just so fantastic. Two young African-American actors and talking about race and the challenges that we face in the racial divide. And there's a lot of things I think you'll take from it. There's certainly a lot of things that I took from it last night. But the main thing is we need more of the dialogue, right? That we need more of that. I'll give you a couple examples. One of the questions that was asked, because Ken, Glenn, and I are white men. And one of the questions that Nikki asked us was, if you were walking down the street and you saw a black male heading your way, would you be afraid? And that's such an insightful question, but they were surprised that the honest answer was, it depends, right? I mean, if I'm walking after dark alone in a place that is maybe I shouldn't be in, yeah, I would be. And I'd just be afraid of any man big walking my direction, right? I can honestly say it wouldn't matter if he was white, black, whatever. That would make me a little uncomfortable. If it is noon and I'm walking on the strip here in Vegas by myself, but there's no, not at all. I mean, it wouldn't. And so those are conversations that both sides need to have. Those are conversations that are so important. So as I said, one of the things about the good news about the bad news is that people want to have these conversations. But I have to admit, it's a very uncomfortable thing to talk about. I'm uncomfortable talking about it right now. You know why? Because I think for many of us, we're terrified that it's just not going to come out the way we want it to. That there'll be a slip of the tongue, and we live in such a gotcha culture, right? We live in such a gotcha culture. There is a great book by Mark Ronson, and the title of the book is "So You've Been Publicly Shamed." I've listened to the audiobook. I'm assuming it's out as a book, but it's certainly an audiobook available on Audible. And it goes to people who, he went to people who had been publicly shamed, who had said things that were awful and were wrong, and their lives were in many cases ruined because of what they had said. And it's terrifying to think that you can say something wrong and not only create immediate problems for you, but you can lose your job, you can lose your career, you can lose. Years ago, there was a young woman who got on a flight to South Africa and tweeted, "I'm heading to South Africa," where, and I won't get the words exactly right, but she was talking about AIDS. And then she said something about, "Well, I won't get AIDS, I'm white." And so the flight takes off. She doesn't have Wi-Fi on the flight. Well, in the 10-hour flight, by the time the flight lands, it's become viral, and they fired her from her job. And one of the things that he found out as he was researching this was she meant it to be sarcastic about white privilege, not to be racist, because she was going there to work and to volunteer helping AIDS patients. I mean, she meant it to be, and it missed the mark. I mean, she said it just didn't come out right. But when you look at what her life had been, it's someone who was devoted and volunteered to causes that proved that she was not that kind of person. We get so afraid sometimes that it's that we're just going to slip up, and that's I think that's part of why we don't have some of these difficult conversations, is because our fear it's going to be taken wrong, or that something's not going to come out the way that we mean it, and then we get branded as something that and in some cases that fear is justified, right? But we got to get past that if we're going to have the conversations that will help us and will make a difference and bind us together and bring some things that we need. So in this time, as we're moving from masks to helmets, yeah, I hadn't thought of that before. Yeah, with all that's going on, it sounds. I think we need both, right? We need both. Hey, kid. Charles says it's a downgrade from Grand Poobah. He's mentor Grand Poobah, all of that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Michigan is on stay home till 2021, and there's going to be no meetings till 2025. The way that we're going now. Yeah, Ken, it was the biggest show we've ever done. It shows that people, and that's the point I'm getting to. And I thank you for jumping in there with that, because it's really something. We need to have the conversation, and people want to have the conversation. That's why we had thousands of people watching it last night. But yet it can't just be up to Ken and Glenn and Scott and Nikki and DJ to initiate those conversations, right? We've got to do that. So that's part of what we're going to chat about in the next couple of minutes. Oh, DB, I'm sorry, I'm saying DJ. I've got another friend, DJ. So yes, DB. So hey, here's Sonia. You fired 2 clients today. I am so proud of you, Sonia. If you're not here, she was talking about 2 clients that drove her crazy, drove her nuts, spending so much time. They were never satisfied. They brought her down. There's good news right there. Absolutely. There is good news. And Sonia, if you spend the time that you spent worrying about those other clients, finding new clients that fit, new clients that appreciate you, your business will absolutely grow. The most powerful word, I think, is no. Hey, I'm a guy who wrote a book called Just Say Yes, right? But one of the most powerful words that you can get is no, because no frees you to be able to say yes to the things that you need to. If you're saying yes to everything, the electrician just here's a friend of ours goes to the church that we do, and he used to sing in church all the time. And he said, "Man, we really miss your singing. We really miss you." And he said, "I got to the point I was volunteering in so many things that I was volunteering at things talking about having a great family life, and volunteer about things about getting involved with your kids. And I was volunteering, and I realized that I was taking so much time away from my family and my kids to sing and help and talk to other people about doing that with theirs. I wasn't, I was talking the good talk, but I figured out I better, do it." And I thought that was so profound and so important. It's absolutely what we need to be doing. And Sonia, there you go. It gets so easy to, they're clients. I gotta, that we get wrapped up with people that bring us down. Oh, thank you, Charles. I appreciate it. Thank you for doing that. And we appreciate everybody that's watching. Absolutely. Hey, Curtis, you were there with us last night. I appreciate that. That's awesome. And near Portland, and I'm assuming that's Portland, Oregon. Curtis, is it Portland, Oregon? So yeah, Shelly is the chief operating officer of Distinction Institute, and also happens to be my favorite sister, my only sister. But yeah, we got to drop the fear and ask the questions. You're exactly right, Ken. That's it. Some years ago, there was a newscaster, Robert, hit it on the head when he calls us the United States the offended. Yeah. Jerry, you're right. And part of what we have to get by is that, the whole bad news or shoot the messenger thing. I'm reminded of those jokes that says I have good news and bad news, right? Have you heard that? The doctor calls the patient and says, "I have good news and bad news. Which do you want first?" And the patient says, "Well, gosh, doc, give me the good news." And he says, "Well, the good news is you have 48 hours to live." And the guy goes, that's the good news? What could possibly be the bad news? Doctor says, I forgot to tell you that yesterday. But I forgot to tell you yesterday. That's the bad news, right? We've heard so many of those jokes about good news and bad news. It's interesting how we consume news. Pam and some folks in Indianapolis will remember when I used to be on television there. I was on television in Louisville, Kentucky, at WHAS television, and spent a lot of time at WISH TV, WISH TV in Indianapolis. Did entertainment reviews, movie reviews, and they were kind enough to ask me in Indianapolis to be the anchor of the weekend news, which is very unusual in a top 25 market. In broadcasting, they talk about markets in terms of size. Now, it's not necessarily the size of the city, it's the size of the market area. How many potential viewers are in that particular area? And Indianapolis is the 25th largest market. And so that's one of the things that you try to do is for broadcasters to get into a top 50 market is a big deal. There's 300 markets. So to get in the top 50 market is a big deal. And then get to top 25 is a big deal. And then you try to get to a top 10 or top 5. Well, anyway, so to do that in the top 25 market is really unusual. And to get to do that was really, really interesting to see television news from that particular side. One of the sidelights is that when I was anchoring, the sports person on the show was Sage Steele of ESPN, and Sage remains such a great friend to this day. So one of the things you live and die by are the ratings. And one of the interesting things is back in the 1980s, about 30% of Americans said that they followed the news very closely. Then that number decreased down to 23% in the 90s, but it's bounced back again to 30% at the start of the 21st century. So picture yourself in the news business, and you lose from 30% to 23%. You lose 7% of your viewing audience, which is a big deal, right? Because advertisers pay based upon what your ratings are. The amount you can charge for a commercial is directly tied to what the ratings are of the newscast. So how did they get them back? Well, part of the way that they got viewers back is to align with political philosophies, because they found that people would watch more when the news was presented from a philosophy with which they already agreed. So if you're a conservative, you probably watch Fox. If you're a liberal, you probably watch MSNBC. I think we could probably agree that CNN has gone from the middle of the road to a left-leaning. And I'm not trying to be critical. We don't talk about politics here, but I'm not trying to be critical of that one way or the other. But we see that, right? I mean, in terms of how they view things. And what happened was they grew their viewers because, and Larry Winget has talked about this a bunch, is that it's not that people want to be informed as much as it is they want to feel informed. It's not that we want to be informed as much as it is we want to feel informed. And so what we have to do is to take a look at where we're getting our information and where we're getting our insights. So, hey, my friend Terry Heifetz is here. Hey, Terry, gosh, you've been too long. Oh, you were so good. Terry, you were fabulous to work with. Terry worked at WISH TV when I was there at Ball State University now. And gosh, Terry was at Ball State University. And so, gosh, it's so good to see you. I'm so glad that you're here. And it is amazing how television news has changed and has been impacted. And it's hard for me to be critical when I really, really appreciated being a part of it. And I know how hard, I know how hard Terry worked when he was at WISH. And you'd see folks, Patty Spitler, I posted about Patty the other day, Pam. It's just these wonderful, wonderful people I had the privilege of working with. And I know how hard they work, and to see how people criticize when a lot of what they're doing is what their job is and what they're sent out to do. Yeah, I mean, my guess is if I went for an interview at MSNBC and it came out, I said to them, I'm a staunch conservative, I probably wouldn't get the job. Likewise, if I went to Fox and said I was very liberal, probably wouldn't get the job because that's part of what they want is that slant. Yeah, Brian, it's exactly, it's being informed. It's being informed versus feeling informed. We want to feel informed. And Jeff, there you go. And part of that too is folks would say that Fox is far right, So what we have to do is to understand, and Jerry's talking about it here. One of the things, do you really doubt how Sean Hannity votes? Do we really doubt how Rachel Maddow votes? But yet, back in the day, I sound like my dad walking to school, right? But I didn't know how Walter Cronkite voted. I didn't know how Chet Huntley or David Brinkley or Peter Jennings or whoever back then voted. So, and Jim, my friend Jim Plump from back in Indiana says, don't you think 24-hour news has played a part in it versus the days of 6 and 11 only? Jim, you're hitting the nail on the head, right? Because what they found was if they aired this 24/7 and presented it in a way predetermined that the audience would like it, they'd stay tuned. But here's the other thing. We won't stay tuned to good news. We won't. You may say, oh, I would. Maybe so. But neuroscientist Rick Hansen has discovered that the brain is like Velcro for negative experiences and like Teflon for positive ones. Let that soak in for a minute. The brain is like Velcro for negative experiences and somewhat like Teflon for positive ones. In other words, part of the reason that we talk so much about bad news is because we tend to remember the bad news. I will never forget the video. I mean, to my dying day, I won't forget the video of the cop's knee on the victim's neck. I won't forget till my dying day seeing Challenger explode. But I can't tell you what the kicker was on last night's news, even though I watched it. The kicker story is that little positive, cherry on top that a lot of newscasts end with. I can't tell you what it was last night. So what we have to understand is the way our brain is wired tends to grab and hold on to negative comments. If someone insults you, how long do you remember that? As opposed to if someone gives you a compliment, right? I mean, Tammy, if you're watching, I'm sorry to use you as an example here. I apologize in advance, but if I say to Tammy, man, that outfit looks fantastic, it's remembered long enough until another outfit's put on. If I say, hey, man, your hair doesn't look too good today, oh, look out, because that'll be remembered for days, weeks. And I am no better, right? I am no better. Let Tammy say, oh, honey, you look good today. I feel good until the next day. If she says you put on a little weight, I remember that for months. So that's part of the way that we're wired. That's part of the way that we're wired. Bill, you're exactly right. The psychological definition is the reticular activating system in terms of what the mind hangs on to. Well, here's another example of it, as Phil knows well. If you go buy a car, right? Let's say you go buy a new Jeep Cherokee. Man, as soon as you pull that thing off the lot, it seems like everybody in the world's driving a Jeep Cherokee. If you notice, it just as soon as you get one, everybody's got one. And that's the reason why. It's what the brain notices. It's what's activated. It's what happens there. And now with this surrounding us, as Jim talked about, 24/7, there's so much more to remember. Yeah, and it's amazing to think, isn't it, Charles, that for many of the people watching live and watching on the replay, they'll have no idea who I'm talking about with Walter Cronkite. If you say your hair doesn't look good today, or no, stupid. again, is what we call that. Not too sharp. So, and people are programmed to receive negative more quickly and hang on to it longer. So, here's the good news about bad news. That changes when we understand the principle. It does. Once we know it and once we understand it, then we can make that intelligent, logical thing that, oh, wait, that's kind of the way that my brain's been wired. I can move on from this. So there becomes our challenge. With all these challenges that we're seeing, whether we're talking pandemic or whether we're talking about protests or whatever we're talking about, if we understand the processes, we're going to hear about the bad news. See, that's why what we need to watch. And I'm not suggesting that we ought to be watching this, but if we're watching something, there are some beautiful videos. Did you see the video of the cop, the police officer, somehow got separated by his group, and these, like, I don't know, 7, 8 black guys joined arms, linked their arms together to escort him to safety? Now, we'll hear about the one guy that throws the rock through the window, but not about the 8 guys that lock arms that get a policeman to safety. Why? Because, and Terry, that was there, that's kind of a joke in television news. The old joke is, if it bleeds, it leads. In other words, what's going to be the first story? What's going to be the lead story? The first story, it's going to be the one of challenge and tragedy. Because the ratings will show that people will tune into that. Now, look, news is the unusual. That's the other thing that people have to understand. The old classic that Colonel Chupp, who was the journalism professor at Franklin College in Indiana, where I went to school, it's the oldest example in the world, but dog bites man is not a story. Man bites dog is. In other words, news tends to be the unusual that happens. And so when something that is unique and unusual happens, that's pretty much what's defined as news. And sadly, we tend to look for the negative. So the good news about bad news is, once we recognize that our brains will hold on to that, we can make the choice to hold on to something else. So my question for you is, specifically, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? Terry, yeah. They say they want good news, but they don't watch it. That's what I've been trying to say. Terry, thank you. That is so great. Thank you for sharing that. That's exactly what I've been trying. We say we want good news, but the masses don't really watch it. We say we want it, but the masses don't. But as Charles says here, that's what we're trying to do here, is to have this oasis of good news and good information. And our viewers are growing here. So what we have to do is to discipline ourselves to focus on what's good. So the good news about bad news is, with so much out there today, with so many, think about this. You've seen it here if you watch during the day. We have viewers in Australia. We have viewers in the United Kingdom. We're talking here. Charles is commenting from Silicon Valley, while we have folks in Wisconsin and North Carolina, and we can have our own national broadcasts of good news. There has never in our history been such access to good news. There's never been such access to good news. So you and I don't have to be like all of these other people in terms of where we get our news or how we get our news. I am not saying we should be uninformed. Ignorance is not bliss. Some of the saddest people I know are people who have no idea what's going on. Ignorance is not bliss. But we can choose the approach that we take. So here's the final message of the day. There are very few things in our life that we have 100% control over. But the good news is, our attitude is one of them. You've got 100% control over your attitude. When your feet hit the floor this morning, getting out of bed, at that moment, you can decide if it is going to be a good attitude or a bad attitude about today. If you wring your hands and say, look at what happened in our streets and our world last night, everything is horrible, it's going to be a bad day. I promise you it was going to be a bad day. But if your feet hit the floor and said, man, some bad things happened last night, but good is going to come of it. Good is going to come out of this. And I'm going to have a good day to move it that way. You can have a better day. I'm not being Pollyanna. I'm not saying put on your get the pun, the rose-colored glasses. But what I am suggesting is, while everybody can have the outlook that they want and to seek out bad news, you and I could choose to focus on the good. That is an individual decision. That is a personal decision. And it's a decision that you and I have to make constantly. Yeah. What do we feed our brains just like we feed our bodies? Yeah. Feed your brain good, nutritious, positive information, continuously learn and invest in knowledge. I don't know who said that, Charles, but I kind of like that, right? Curtis, so right. Our response is what we can control. We cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we respond what happens to us. Ed Foreman was a motivational speaker of renown back in the 80s. Ed's still around. Interestingly enough, I'll tell you a quick Ed Foreman story. He and Davy Crockett, I mean, the real life Davy Crockett, are the only two men to have been elected to Congress from two different states. Isn't that interesting? The only guy to be elected for Congress from two different states, right? So Ed Foreman used to talk about how you could have a guy who would get a ding in his door in the parking lot and would throw up his hands and go, oh my God, it's ruined. My beautiful car is ruined. It's ruined. And he's got a ding in, from the door. And you could work with somebody else and they're driving to work and they hit a patch of ice and roll their car 4 times, crawl out of the broken windshield, dust themselves off and go, the good Lord was riding with me today. Ain't I lucky? I'm alive. Now, here's one guy whose car is completely trashed saying, I'm so lucky. And another guy's just got a ding in his door saying the world is awful. It's not what happens to you, as Curtis mentioned there. It's how you respond. Good will come out of this because, Kathy, you're exactly right. And we will find it. It's the choice that we have to make. I like the formula, Robert. There you go. There it is. So the good news about bad news is, even when you hear bad news, you can control your response. Even when you get bad news, you can choose the response that you have. So even in this time of bad news, when it has surrounded us with all the things that are going on in our streets and all the things that are going on with the pandemic, we can choose how we respond. That ability to make that choice, I think it's pretty good news. Hey, as always, thank you for sharing. Thank you for watching. This is my favorite 30 minutes of the day. I appreciate you guys more than I have the ability to describe. If you haven't gone to Distinction Nation yet, please check it out. That's where we have free resources. Matter of fact, there's a free 14-day audio program there. You download it, you listen to one segment every day for the next couple of weeks. Helps you align your values with your goals, with your daily actions, so you can create personal distinction. That's there for you, and it's absolutely free. Don't forget, we got Jay Bear coming up on Thursday, maybe a couple other surprise guests as the week goes on. I really appreciate you so much. Thank you for watching. Happy June 1st. We're going to make it a better month. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow on Daily Distinction.